On this week's episode of the RAG podcast, I was joined by Nick Eaves. Nick is the co-founder of Stanton House, a specialist recruitment business headquartered in London with now 85 staff after 10 years of growth and offices in the UK, in Asia, and in the US. Nick has a very, very interesting and unique story. I think one that we've not told on the RAG podcast to date. And what I picked up from Nick, which is really important, is actually Nick started his agency at the age of 40, almost 41. He'd been in corporate recruitment for almost 15 years, and he'd worked his way up to being a senior leader in a business that was purchased by Adecco when he made the decision with his co-founder to bite the bullet and start a company. Now, many people would think at the age of 40 that you might have missed the boat in starting a recruitment company. But Nick really explains the benefits and why he thinks it was an advantage of his to be able to utilize and leverage the experience he'd built throughout his 30s and in a real leadership capacity, but also how much fun he had going back into recruitment and proving some inner truths that he could actually do a really good job on the front line as well. He's a super educated guy. He's got a great business. He's got some really ambitious growth plans, and give some unique insights into both what's going on in the economy, how recruiters can really attack things like R35 and other regulations. But also, I just left with that message that, you know what, if you really understand your market, if you have a proposition and a plan to be niche, then it's never too late to start. So I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it. Without further ado, Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you in.
Good to be here.
Sorry I was a little bit late coming down.
It's no problem. I was nearly late. I had a little wander around the local residential streets.
Oh, well, we do have this chat on nearly every episode about where
it's
our
not just
office
me.
is. It's hard to find, but not as bad as the old one. But sorry to keep you waiting. I've been particularly busy today.
Yeah, well,
it happens.
Good stuff.
It happens, yeah, it is good stuff. Well, look, Nick, I've given you an intro, which I always prefer you to give the listeners firsthand who you are and what you do. So if you could let us know, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm one of two guys who launched a business called Stanton House, a chap called Neil Wilson and myself nearly 10 years ago. And we're a business of about 85 people, primarily in the UK. We've got offices in Hong Kong, Singapore and Chicago. Wow. And so it's been a bit of a journey the last 10 years, mostly of growth, but a few bumps along the way. And it's been a great experience. So yeah, I'm based normally in London, but I do a fair bit of travelling. Wow.
So the testimonial year is on its way.
Yeah. So 10-year anniversary will be 1st of October. So we're just putting some plans together.
What's the plan? What are you going to do?
Well, we'll do something for clients, customers, people who've helped us along the way, and then we'll do a big old hoolie internally as well.
Anything you do, just you and your business partner?
We'll do it. Yeah.
Gotta go for dinner.
We'll do something swanky, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, wow, 10 years. What are we now? We're going into year 4, so we're 3 years old.
Okay, yeah.
10 years. I mean, it sounds like a long time away, but the pace of the last 3, I imagine it's gone like a blink of an eye, right?
Do you know, it's funny, on a certain level, I can't really comprehend anything before Stanton House, even though I had a long old career with a really good business called Badenoch Clark for many years that I love very much. But I suppose it has flown by, but it's been such an adventure and I've loved it so much that it just feels like my whole life in a way.
Right. So let's dig into it. So you were, how long were you a recruiter before you launched?
14 years. So people set up businesses a lot younger than I did. I was 40 when we launched Stanton House. Right, so I was kind of late into recruitment. I did a few other things before, mainly studying and enjoying life. And then I started at Badenoch Clark when I was 26.
I got into recruitment when I was 25, yeah.
All right, okay. Yeah. So, Badenoch Clark was a great business. Had a lot of fun there. Really kind of values led, learnt a lot.
Yeah.
And then in 2010, beginning of 2010, it was acquired by, the business that owned B&C was acquired by the Adecco group, which led to a bit of change, and it was the right time for Neil and I to take our leave. And
were you in a really senior position at Badenoch?
Yeah, Neil was the MD of Badenoch Clark, and I ran a chunk of the business. I was on the board and ran the A&F business in the UK and a few other bits. And
sure.
So I suppose. Whenever there's a kind of transaction like that, often it's the people at the very top of the business where there's the most change.
Yeah.
For a lot of people at Badenoch Clark, I think the the transaction worked out, kind of fine for them, and but for us, it was the right sort of catalyst to make a change.
So what actually did happen? What was it like for you at that level when it changed?
Well, it was a really interesting time because Badenoch Clark was owned by an American business that was totally hands-off, a business called MPS Group that no one will have ever really heard of. They owned a brand called Modis that people may
Modis
know.
International, yeah. Bigger brand, yeah.
Yeah, so, and they, sort of we'd see them once a year. They just kind of let us get on with it, and it was a great experience, and we built the business up. I think there were 60 people when I joined and kind of 500 when I left.
Wow.
And so it was a big business, and we had a lot of fun. Of course, Adecco is a very different animal. They've got significant UK operations. So, we went from being, I guess the rest of world face of MPS Group to being, a small part of Adecco Group. And so, and then Neil, there was never really a job for Neil. So Neil, made his decision. And then now I suppose it was a case of, okay, do I have a path climbing the slippery pole within Adecco, which is a very successful business, but a big change from what I was used to.
Big corporate.
Yeah. Or do I do something else? And then we had a bit of garden leave and kind of put our plans together, which is exciting. I mean, I don't know if you probably do remember, but 2010 was a pretty crappy time in the UK economy. So
that was the year I went travelling.
Right,
so I was
choice.
Yeah, I was
good
a
choice.
24-year-old PE teacher who didn't. I remember the word the credit crunch, and I was like, "Well, I'm all right. I'm in public sector. You could just honestly, I was kicking a ball around, playing at the golf course. It didn't affect me in any way. And then I got to Melbourne where I got into recruitment, and it was they called it the GFC.
Yeah.
The GFC, mate.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that? I thought it was like a spin-off from KFC. But when I found out, I was like, fucking hell, this sounds pretty tough. And then when I came back to the UK in 2011 and joined Venquis, it was like, I kind of understood then how hard it had hit in the UK. So you were in that right in the heart of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a whole, I'm sure it was the same when you set your business up. You have a whole list of people telling you you're nuts,
I've had a lot of that.
Why are you doing that? But I think, we both felt this is a kind of now or never really. It's our moment.
Yeah.
And they're a big thing for us as well when we started out. There's a couple of guys who had worked for us at Badenoch Clark, hugely successful guys who were working for a competitor business. And when we set up, they wanted to do, I guess, a regional offering. So, out in Reading in the Thames Valley, Lee Costello, a chap called Kevin Culverhouse. And so that was great that they came on board quite quickly because, to be quite honest, Neil and I probably hadn't done recruitment for 10 years.
I was thinking that if you'd got to that level in a business, I mean, when I finished, I was managing a direct team of 6 and I was oversight of the contract business, which is like 20 people.
Yeah.
And I'd not billed for probably 2 years hands-on really. So, and that was bothering me. I think that was a massive reason why I was thinking about all these alternative routes to marketing and brand, because I was like, do I really just want to fucking pick up the phone and ring candidates? No offense to the candidates, they're all great, but it definitely played on my mind. Whereas my business partner Amma was on the way up in his career in that space. So he was right in the market, like doing his job. So he was like, what are you fucking talking about? It's going to be fine. Whereas you, 10 years out of doing the grunt, what did you think, right, we're just going to hire people from day one? Is that the plan? Kind
of. We had a little bit, we put a bit of money in and we had an investor at the start. So there was a bit of that. But I think, the big thing was, first of all, we asked ourselves, does the world need another recruitment company? And you're like, well, probably not. There's quite a few of them. UK's crazy numbers, 38,000 or something I read the other day. Yeah. But what we both totally believed in is that there's a role for a recruitment company that really is focused on the customer experience and relationships. And I know there's a whole bunch of recruitment companies who do that, but they're very much in the minority. Often it's very much a sales-driven thing, the industry, as we know, and that could be hugely successful. But we've got a real passion around the customer experience and how we kind of orchestrate that, how we measure that, and that's been at the heart of everything we've done, and that's what we're passionate about, so we did that. In terms of doing recruitment, I was terrified, to be quite honest. Actually, not so much the BD bit. I love people, love meeting people.
Yeah, I was the same with that.
The actual filling jobs, matching. It'd been so long since I'd done that, and so I remember the first jobs we got. I remember how shit scared I was sending the CVs to this job. It was like a real moment. I didn't sleep. And then they wanted to interview them, and it was just like euphoric. It's just like unbelievable. Yeah. And then we started doing deals, and it was amazing. And in fact, one of the things at Badenoch Clark that was interesting was that when you showed a little bit of leadership potential, they they moved you into a management role quite quickly. I was made a manager within 2 years. I hadn't even got good at recruitment really, and then they made me a manager, and then it was kind of a non-billing manager role. And it's how they scaled the business, and it worked. But for me personally, I had sort of unfinished business to try and be a decent recruiter. So even though I was a bit of an old git, I loved it. I got back into it, kind of challenged myself to be better than, a whole bunch of people out there. And it was great. So we were really hands-on, and we did hire some people, but we would definitely roll your sleeves up. And
so if we go back, firstly, how did you come up with the name Stanton House? It sounds powerful. It's got a strong name.
That's good of you to say so. I mean, I don't know about you. You probably found it easy, but it was one of the hardest things.
I bought about 3,000 domains.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we had a bit of a nightmare with it at first because we didn't want surnames. I know it's quite a traditional thing in recruitment. We didn't want that. And then I think the origins at first. I'm a member of Soho House for years, and we like the idea of like substance, a place, something like that. It was going to be something green or something house, and then we just come up with all these kind of prefixes, and then all the URLs are gone, right? So you just you kill yourself doing it. And then on the list, it was a random thing. One of Neil's grew up in Scotland, and one of his favourite players, a guy called Pat Stanton, when he was a kid, and it just sort of leapt out at us. And then we found that there wasn't another recruitment company called that, and there's some dude in America owned the URL, but he sold it for a few bucks. And so we were away, and it felt substantive. You said that's really nice feedback. Thank you.
It's got that kind of I think it's because of Mansion House.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Stanton House. It kind of. Are you based around there? I don't know. I feel like it makes sense for you to be somewhere near.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny is there's actually a hotel in I think in Shropshire called Stanton House. Wow. And in the early years we just got the old phone call, asking for reservations, and can you bring some towels up? That was funny. But I think, it was something that we, when you spend so many years having to spell Badenoch to people, and even Clark, you'd spend your whole time sort of spelling your email. We want to be able to say, nobody spells my surname right anyway, but I have to spell my surname out, and then at stantonhouse.com, most people get it. And
I get Hoxton a lot. So,
right, yeah.
Like, even yesterday, I went downstairs in our building. So, long story short, my dog broke his leg when I was in Dubai 2 weeks ago.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's a horrible story, a horrible feeling, because he broke it when I was away with my parents. They were dead worried. And then while I was scrambling away in Dubai, I had to send claims forms from the insurer to the vets and all this stuff. And I basically got the vet's name wrong. This is how funny. I got the vet's email wrong. And then I just thought I'd check in with them. So I picked up the phone, and they were like, I've not received anything. I was like, so I looked, I got it wrong. Came downstairs, and then I was like, can you print this off for me really quick? It's got to be done. Did it. Can you scan it back to me? Yep, sure. We've been here for a year, Hoxton Media. She's like, yep, no problem. And I was like, getting on. But when you're getting on with something, in the back of your head something's not coming through. And I looked. I went down, I was like, have you sent it? She goes, yeah, I've sent it. Look, Hoxton Media. And I was like, that's like the 100th time someone's called us that. Because of the London connection. But Hoxo is actually really simple. So when you explain it, people know it. People get it. But no, I like the name. And then where did you base the business from at the beginning? What was the...
So we went into a little serviced office on Chancery Lane with I won't name them, but an awful serviced office provider. We got a really good deal, but they were nuts, and they were dreadful. It was a bit painful, but we made it work. We were on the second floor opposite Sports Direct.
Yeah, I know where you are. Yeah.
Which was always a bit of an adventure. There's always something to look out the window. There's always some biffo at Sports Direct. Yeah. And that was our home. And we moved offices a few times as we grew. We were very fortunate at the start because we'd raised a little bit of money. So, whilst there's always that kind of pressure, we knew we could do it right. We could actually build some foundations, get the right people on board, which we did. So, first year we lost a bit of money, but we actually built some foundations, and then we gained a bit of momentum. We started with Neil did finance, and I did change transformation, which is how we started. Yeah. And we hired some people, and off we went. Wow, started recruiting again.
Well, you said you got back into billing and made some. So how was the first year? How did it go?
First year we did about 280 grand or something, and we lost, we probably lost more money than that. But yeah, it was good. We got 2 or 3 clients, we won a couple of projects. when you start, like I don't know, maybe people are smarter than we were, but there's a bit of, you're so desperate to do some deals that you start, even though you got a real plan for being really narrow and strategic, you have a pal who says, oh, can you do one of these? And you end up saying, oh, it could be 20 grand, I'll do that. So you end up being a little bit,
bit generous.
Yeah, well, you end up being too wide. But we kind of learnt those lessons and really narrowed down and got a bit more confidence with what we're doing. And
when did you do? That's a good point, actually. So I spoke to a guy today in South Africa, and I spoke to a guy 2 days ago in the UK, and both said the exact same thing. They said, "Look, we're a couple of years in. We've had this kind of niche idea, and then, like you just said, to get invoices in the bank, we've kind of took what we could. And 1 minute I'm filling a Java developer role, then I've got a systems architect role, then I've got a financial analyst role, and actually our website doesn't say anything about what we're doing. The pitch changes every time we talk to a client. We can't use the candidates twice because the pools change. Yeah, and both things. What I said to both of them was like, you're going to have to get to a point where you're going to have to slice some of it off and actually just. But for you, where is that point?
Well, I think the big thing for us was what we realised is by being too wide, you just can't deliver on the customer experience. All the stuff you really believe in around being a specialist and around building a long-term relationship, you just got to be brave and say no to stuff. Otherwise, you just cannot deliver on that. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the way, for a bit of context, when I'm sure this will come later, but we set business up in Chicago in October, and everything you've learned over 10 years when you do that is sort of distilled. So the guy who's running it, Henry's a bit of a legend, super smart lad anyway. But when we worked on the business plan, you just put everything you've learned into that, and you don't make all the mistakes you made when you did it first time round. So, we are so narrow out there. We're doing cybersecurity. We're really clear on what our message is, what our offering is, around our data strategy, our messaging, our marketing strategy. It's all absolutely nailed down. And I look at the business plan for our US business, I think, Jesus, we had nothing like that when what we had at the start, even though we'd been around the block a little bit, we'd had some experience of leadership and so on. We're really clear on values and what we stood for, but some of the detail around, data and coding and some of the templates and messaging and the tools to do the job, we were really a bit clueless in 2010, I'd say. Yeah. What we had was one of those graphs where, you make loads of more money every single year. You've all seen one of those. And, we went to see the bank saying, can we have an invoice financing facility? And they kind of didn't even look at our graphs. But, really? It was, it was fun time.
Again, though, the question is, when do you know? What do you think is the trigger for a newer business now that has to go? Sometimes they have to just fill those jobs early on.
Right. So
where do they go? Well, fuck it. We're gonna have to turn all this away now.
Yeah. So if I were advising that person, if I could do it all over again, I would have been much more narrow right from the start and just taken less, earned less money if I could afford it.
Spent less money.
Yeah. I mean, it's just because it's a killer. Because if you, let's say someone says, "Oh, look, I know it's not your bag, Nick, but can you do a marketing director role? Chief marketing officer. It's paying 130. But I could pay 30%, right?" And you think, well, yeah, of course you want to do that. But what you then do is you end up speaking to 50 chief marketing officers who you're never going to speak to again, right? And what's your message to them? And what happens when they phone you up and message you? You might deliver it for that client, but then they want, and you place chief marketing officer, and then she wants you to build her team for her, and you're like, well, I feel obliged. Before you know it, you're not in control of your strategy. So even though it's
of your own success,
yes, exactly, but it's still a fail because you might make a lump of money, but you're deviating from the thing that you believe is going to make you famous. Mm-hmm. So my advice would be, and my advice to myself would have been, just be braver, say no to that. So be really clear on your geographies, really clear on your specialisms, the level, do it from the start. We after probably 6 or 8 months, just got a bit braver. We looked each other in the eye a bit and said, come on, we need to tighten this up, which is what we did. And then we got a bit of momentum and got it going.
Wow. And you just used the phrase famous as well. So at the Recruitment Agency Expo last week, we had a stand for 2 days where it was plastered on, it was "We'll make you famous."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was, we basically put 4 boxes on a board with a load of stickers called "I'm famous," and we said to customers, look, what percentage of your customers came to you? So the first engagement with a client, what percentage inquired about working with you? And the industry was like, people were looking at us like, it's good opener, because they didn't have to think or answer any questions. Like, we weren't pitching them, we were just like, where are you on the scale across the industry? Most people were in their 0 to 25%. Then it got gradually smaller as you got to 100%. But then when we probed into why you were up there, or how any of these were a percentage were actually coming to you, it was always networks, referrals, people we've previously worked with.
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, well, the first time you worked with them, how did they come to you then? Well, I cold called them, or well, they were already on the agency's books. So for me, being famous, the definition of fame is having a widespread awareness of a favourable nature. So it's multiple people in a specific space knowing who you are for a start and looking at you in a favourable space. And I think every recruiter wants that.
Yeah, and it's hard to do. Yeah. And I think you can only do it if you're very narrow and you can properly communicate and engage with and have some sort of relationship with a large part of that community. So that's good. It's a good challenge, and also the other thing I would think with if you'd asked me that and I was in the audience that day, part of me would be thinking, do I measure that? Do I actually code that? Do I know? Right? Because if Alison's working for me and someone calls in, right? How's she going to put that on the system? She'll put it down as a BD call because she's talked about BD. Actually, have I got a mechanism to capture that? You see, my answer to you will probably be, I actually don't know.
Well, it's a good
I know
point.
she's a bit, which,
well, there's a lot of systems.
Which gets you thinking.
There's a lot of tech out there now that can tell you. We had a lady on the show last week, Eleanor, from a business called Elamed. 5 years into her journey, 70 plus over 70, I think 73% of all placements last year were jobs called in, which, because she's so super niche, medical technology, globally, but super niche. She's got a personal brand. I think that's the future of recruitment, in my opinion. So, but let's go back. So, end of year one.
Yeah.
How many people did you have at that point?
We had about 8 or 9 people.
So there's some significant growth.
Yeah.
You're building the foundations then for year 2 and 3, etc.
Yeah, we were, and and so we. In fact, our first hire was not a biller. Our first hire was this brilliant woman called Denise, who used to work with us at the old place, and she came and basically managed everything other than recruitment. So she's a bit of a hero, is Denise, and basically she's run everything over the years, whether it's sort of finance, pay and bill, compliance, facilities match, just everything for us, and that was brilliant because it enabled She managed all the suppliers. It just enabled Neil and I to get our heads down and look after persuading people to come join us, leading our current people, and getting on the phones and meeting clients and customers. So that was really key. So a year in, we were not making profit. We were making a little bit of net fee income and on a bit of a journey, but it was still nervous time. I would say the first 18 months were a bit scary. It's probably after that, because by the end of year 2, we were up to 20 people.
Right.
So we always wanted to build a business. It wasn't just about making a buck in the kind of medium term. We wanted to build a business, build some scale, and kind of prove that with sort of strong values around kind of integrity and the focus on the customer, that actually you could operate that way, build long-term relationships and get scale. So it wasn't all about trying to, extract some profits out of the business the first sort of 3-5 years. It was about getting a bit of scale. Yeah. But what that did mean is there's always that kind of nervous tightrope you walk between investing and making sure that you're, in good, sound financial shape.
Sure, yeah. So how long were you the biller in that change team before you stepped back and focused on growth?
Yeah, quite a long time. I actually, even now, I do a lot of business development still. Yeah. I don't fill jobs anymore, but probably only for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's partly because I love it, and so probably had to be kind of prized a bit away from it.
Really?
And the way Neil and I so Neil's the CEO, and I've had various job titles, but I'm more on the sales side. So probably me being closer to customers is a natural way for it to be. So Neil, kind of leads on running, I suppose, running the operational parts of the business, running a load of fee-earning teams, and I'm a little bit more focused on networking, senior account management, and now I've sort of developed different bits of the business, and I've always looked after our non-UK stuff, which is now starting to go through the gears a bit.
So in the early days, you were still recruiting, doing all that, but with heavily focused on internal recruitment as well. To get to 20 in 2 years, you must have been meeting a lot of people.
Yes, we were fortunate that a few ex-colleagues came and joined us, but yeah, I mean...
Is there any kind of method to your approach with that?
Well, it's all about values, and I guess I'm sure most people would agree with that anyway, but it's about people who believe in what we believe in. So, there's various different ways to be successful in recruitment, right? But you've got to be passionate about the way you've chosen. The passion we have is about doing it through, being really smart around how you add value, share insight, build credibility, and therefore build a trusting relationship. And then over time, that turns into a commercially successful relationship. So, there's loads of people who are hugely successful in recruitment who they might say that but don't believe that. So really for us, we only want to hire people who believed in what we believed in. And so you meet a lot of people who might have made you a few quid, but you weren't convinced that they were in the way we wanted them to be. So we did find it very hard actually to hire people. And then what we found is that, we were talking earlier, you've got a business bringing people into recruitment who've got sales experience in a different industry. We have had more success. We've had a lot of success with people who've had no recruitment experience before, and we teach them how to do that well. We've also had some cracking people who've come to us and brought experience with them. But in the early days, as we were getting going, actually the people who joined without previous recruitment experience kind of bought into our methods really quickly, and that's really how we got our numbers up and started growing. Did
you have any method to how much time you'd invest in internal recruitment as opposed to external?
Well, we all just rolled our sleeves up, to be honest. So we just set ourselves goals for, how many headhunts we do, and, we challenge each other to do that, getting people in the door, meeting people. And after a while, we used third parties, we used recruitment companies to do it. And I know there's a certain irony with that, but for me, if I expect people to pay me a fee for being an expert in the field, why wouldn't I be happy to pay a fee? And so we quite early on, we found a couple of partners. In fact, there was a company out in Hammersmith that I don't know if they're around anymore that used to do these assessment centres, and it was an absolute flea pit where they would do it. I think anyone who actually stayed for the day was pretty resilient. But we found some brilliant people through that. They would basically get kind of 20 youngsters, graduates or somebody with a year or two's experience together in a room, and they would take them through an assessment centre for us.
Yeah.
So we'd go down and we sort of pick out the kind of top folk from that. That was really effective, actually, really effective. So we hired a bunch of people through that guy, and that worked out really well for us. But yeah, and then over time, you get somebody to do your internal recruitment.
Let's go back in a bit then. So you've got end of year 2, you're sitting at about 20 people. Yeah. How did the trajectory go over that, say, first 5 years? Was it a linear line of?
Yeah, pretty much was.
So it was the line you gave the bank?
Well, no, I think that line was a bit steeper.
It's always amazing how much you over-egg certain things and under-egg others.
I know. Yeah, I think we've grown every year, and we grew by, so 2017 to 2018 was about 25% we grew. Last year, 2019 to 2018 was our lowest growth, I think, ever, because it was only 16%, but, it's a bit complicated in the
16% of a bigger businesses.
Yeah, and I think, last year was a bit tricky, wasn't it, in the UK. Certainly after Q2, we found the UK market was, I think people were pretty fearful of a no-deal Brexit, weren't they? And so, we were a little bit disappointed, I think, in 2019 performance, but we grew 16%. I mean, in fact, our previous year's experience, they brought out a fast track thing. We were top 50 in that, which surprised us, actually, that I think you had to be more than 5 mil net fee income, but we were 40 something in that. And that surprised us, because I don't know about you, but you always think everyone else is doing brilliantly.
Yeah, you do.
You're never happy with your own performance. I mean, I'm so proud of the people in the business and a load of customer relationships and so on. But when you look at it, always want to do more, strive for more. So then finding that out was a bit of a surprise, and I suppose quite a pleasant one for us. But we're aiming at much more significant growth this year. But yeah, we grew every year.
So you said there were some stumbling blocks along the way.
Yeah, I think we got a bit overexcited in the early years. So within a year and a half, we had an office in Edinburgh, with a guy we used to work with who seemed like, we bought into him, so we set him up in an office. I don't know what we were thinking. There's a guy we used to work with in Hong Kong who, we always wanted to be outside the UK, but we did it way too early, really. So we're like, right, let's do that. So
how did Edinburgh go?
Edinburgh was a real struggle. It's in much better shape now. We've got the right leader now, and the guy who did it was a really good guy. And no bad words, good guy. But like many people, so he's a flight away. He's having to do what we do. He's having to manage people, bill, hire, deal with the office. I think people, I don't think I'd have done this on my own. I mean, I think you did do it on your own.
No.
All right, two of you.
Yeah, no, there was originally 3, now there's 2.
Right, okay. So some people who do it on their own are braver than me. Neil and I looked at each other in the eye and we did it.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to do it on my own.
I mean, I don't think I would have done it on my own. So, the guy who ran it for us up in Edinburgh, he, brave lad, did it on his own. We backed him, but it was a steep learning curve and he really struggled. It took us a long time to get that going.
Was it just because he lived there, or was there a business there to be there?
Well, what happened? I mean, lesson in crap strategy. Okay, so I won some work with RBS.
Right.
Some transformation work with RBS up in Edinburgh.
Yeah, I remember.
So we had loads of work coming in. I was on a flight every month, going up to see the client. Thinking, are you completely bonkers, Nick? You set a business up in London and you're flying up to Edinburgh. You're mad. But big client, lots of demand. We were making some good money out of that. And then this guy who we'd worked with before, was a top performer in previous company, wanted to come and join us, and it just seemed like a smart idea at the time.
Was he a Londoner as well?
No, he lived up there. He was a local lad.
Oh yeah, well I can see why you'd do that.
But in hindsight, doing it then was a bad move. But it seemed like a good idea at the time. Getting that balance right between, I don't know, most recruitment companies, I think, struggle. Do you back people or do you back your strategy? Is it what you write down on your page? Sometimes you meet a brilliant person and you think, I'm going to back you. And sometimes that's the best thing you ever did. But it's brave because it's not quite part of your plan. So how agile you want to be, how much you want to stick to your plan.
I was always told, put in the jobs first and the name second. Like, do you know what I mean? Like fill the circle with people. Yeah. Don't build a circle around people. But the same now. You meet someone, you talk to someone, you're like, your brain goes into overdrive.
Yeah. So we got ahead of ourselves. We had an office in Edinburgh. We had an office in Hong Kong. We had the guys in Reading building up, but they were brilliant. So
how many did you have in the business at that point?
Well, it was that, but that was at the end of year 2. So we had 20 in the business, but we had
spread
a couple
4 locations.
All over the place. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you manage that from a comms perspective as a leadership team? Because back in 2010, 2011, they weren't using video conferencing. No, Skype was being used.
Skype was around. Did a lot of travel, but I think the culture in Hong Kong, in our business there, was never quite like the culture in the UK. It was basically, the culture was a product of the guy who ran it.
Yeah.
And the guy who ran it, great guy, great sales guy, and we put some seed money into that business, and we never had to put another bean into it. It made money, and he did great. But it got to the point only a couple of years ago when he did a great job with the business, but he ran out of road, wanted to do something else and step away. So we then hired somebody else to do it. And because it was no longer all about this guy's personality, we got to do it a little bit differently and actually, get much more of a consistent culture, ways of working, standards, all of that stuff. So actually, where we are now with Hong Kong, we've got a dozen people in Hong Kong now, and the guy, Ross, who runs it, it's basically like a smaller version of London. So now we're good to scale it. Back in the day, we backed a guy who was a good salesman, right? And he made a lot of money.
From the UK?
He was originally from Hull.
Right, as you are.
But he lived in Hong Kong for a wee while and settled out there. And So
we found out we've got what? We'll have 60 clients next month, which is exciting. Right. And 10 are probably outside the UK.
Yeah.
But they're all English.
Right, okay.
They're all British, literally, all of them.
Yeah.
Like a couple of lads from Birmingham in Sydney. We got a lad from Wigan in Thailand. It's just all English people around the world. So if you're not English and you like listening to Hoxo, or whatever, the rag, get in touch. It'd be nice to have you on board.
Well, I have to say, our Hong Kong business is very, very multicultural. I mean, we got some Brits, but we've got kind of Hong Kong. We got Hong Kong Americans, we got Hong Kong Canadians, we got a Chinese, Korean American. So it's lots of guys and girls who have been educated in the West, either in the US, Canada, or the UK, but were originally from Asia, from China or Hong Kong or Korea. So they speak language, understand the culture, but understand Western business, and that's kind of how. And then we got some Brits. We got an Australian girl. We got a whole mix there.
It's an expat community. You mentioned briefly before the show the coronavirus recently hitting. Obviously, it's affecting things in Hong Kong. What have you actually seen? Well,
I just think it's morale, because obviously, the border between Hong Kong and China has not been closed. It's been restricted now, but for the first kind of few weeks of the virus breaking out in Wuhan, the border was an open border. So I think, very understandably, residents of Hong Kong are very nervous about, the virus spreading extensively in Hong Kong. Fortunately, that doesn't appear to have happened yet, and hopefully it won't at all. But, I'm in Hong Kong 3 or 4 times a year. I absolutely love it. Clearly I'm very close to all the people who work there. It's been a real tough time for Hong Kong with the protests since June last year. Hong Kong's had a massive battering in terms of the economy. And, our people have been incredibly resilient, smile on their face, come into work, crack on every day. And despite all of that, performed really, really well. They hit their number last year, which is kind of amazing. I guess, what helps us a little bit is that when you work in Hong Kong and in Singapore, often you're dealing with clients who will hire across the region, across Southeast Asia, North Asia. So loads of the roles we deal with are outside Hong Kong, but maybe the client might be based in Hong Kong or Singapore. Yeah. So, business-wise, it's gone okay. But I think morale-wise, it's a test. It's a test of leadership, and it's a test of resilience of your people. So, it's been tough. I mean. And we talked briefly before we started, where I think the media have got a lot to answer for. I think the media kind of love a drama, and I'm not suggesting that it isn't something to be concerned about, but I just think you get very little balance in terms of the scale of the risk and so on. And I think it just frightens a lot of people. Yeah, no, I get it. It's all over the news, and it's. I was saying to you before, I was in Dubai last week, and I'm sat in a cab, and the driver goes. He's like, hey man, you got to wear a mask because of the coronavirus. I think he was American. God knows what he's like. He had a Welsh, maybe.
Yeah, he was bloody hell, Wales. But he was like, you got to wear a mask. And I was like, all right, cool. And the back of the cab, wife was like asleep. Checked on my phone, started looking at Sky Sports News, and Fellaini, who was left United. The article said ex-Premier League footballers leaving China due to coronavirus. Right, so I'm like. Fucking hell, it's literally just been speaking about it, and now it's on my phone in Sky Sports. It's affecting football. Now it's serious. Anyway, jump out the cab, pay the cab, turn around, and I'm walking into the hotel, and Fellaini stood in the lobby of the hotel. So he's left China to go to my hotel in Dubai, and I'm feeling all right now, Nick. So don't worry, okay? I've got no shortness of breath. Not that I'm joking about the virus, but seriously, my wife was like, "God, he's ugly." I was like, "I know it's Marion Fellaini," but it is crazy. And now you hear about one thing, and then it just spreads. But so, all right, going back in the journey, the internationalization. I think that what you've said, it sounds like it added a lot of complexity to a business that probably didn't need it at the time. I think at the time, that's probably fair comment. I think in hindsight, we probably did it too soon. Yeah. And you learn a lot of lessons. I think the flip side of that, is that we realised that we can have a business 5,000 miles away on a completely different economic cycle with an 8-hour time difference and still be successful. So it gives you the confidence to operate a business outside the UK. And so whilst the time of it probably wasn't very smart, actually it
it hasn't done us too much harm, but maybe that was a little bit more luck than judgment. But yeah, now it's a thriving business, well-run business, really integrated and aligned to what we do, and it's going great. And I think the lessons of Hong Kong helped us prepare for Chicago. So, there's always something to learn.
When did Chicago open?
Only in October last year.
Right, so you've got London, Hong Kong, Singapore,
Reading, and we've got an office down in Guildford
Edinburgh,
as well.
Guildford,
Yeah.
and Chicago.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a spread.
Yeah.
It's a real spread. So after you got through the Edinburgh piece and the Hong Kong office, and it's all steady, how did the business evolve? Like, what I often hear a lot about the business that gets to 30, 40 people, and that's kind of a little bit of a break point of like, are we going to break through this?
Yeah.
We now need to build leadership functions and internal HR and all the things that you don't need to worry about early on.
It's a good question. I think, oddly enough, Neil and I had so much more experience of doing that than doing the first 2-3 years bit of the business. So we for years, we've been developing billers to be managers and managers to be directors. We'd done all that. We built L&D functions. We built competency frameworks because we were part of a business that had gone on a different sort of stage of growth. So actually, when it came to really putting those foundations in, we were pretty competent at that. We'd had some really good experience. And so what we were able to do when we got to sort of 20, 30 people, 40 people is we built a management program. We started sort of defining the competencies of the business and how we're kind of measuring performance, and we had a real kind of smart approach to reward and recognition, and we had a point of view on internal comms, and and we had a view on how people would sort of move between teams, and so it's the stuff that if I'd set this business up when I was 25, I wouldn't have had a clue how to do any of that stuff. I'd have either had to get a smart kind of non-exec or pay for someone quite expensive to come do it. We were able to sort of lead that ourselves. So that was probably a real strength of ours, putting the sort of foundations in for growth. So, you build a finance function, you have to build a compliance function, you build an L&D function, marketing, stuff like that. So, we have all of that able to hopefully drive the scaling of our business going forwards. What point do you think you need to really think, like, what headcount size or what financial trigger do you really need to think about that? I think there's loads written about this stuff, about, span of control and all of that, I think it depends a bit quite how strong your leadership team is the next layer down below you. So if you've got a team of 30, 40 people and you've got, 8 or 9, managers or team leaders, and they're all exceptional, then you probably, you can probably get away for a lot longer without those sort of central functions propping it all up. But that is a pretty kind of, idealistic scenario, because there's always, people are always on a journey, aren't they?
Sure.
So I think when you get into 30, 40 people, you need all that. And again, it's all about what's important to you in the business. Okay, so for me, consistency of what we deliver to our customers is so much at the heart of this. So driving consistent best practice is absolutely critical. Now, some organisations might be a bit less bothered about that. It might just be about doing deals. But we, from very early on, we measure, we have this sort of quite sophisticated approach to getting customer feedback that gives us a customer satisfaction score, a net promoter score. We measure that religiously. We, measure that by team. We kind of set goals around that stuff. Now, if you're going to do that, you've got to have some processes in place to enable you to do that, to do with how you look after your data, how you organise your teams, how you train your people, all those sorts of things. So for us, that was really, really important that we put all that in place. You can probably have a flatter business that's less bothered about consistent processes without those central functions. So I think it's a choice.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. When you talked about the customer experience a lot, and I imagine when you and your first few hires running around, it's all about, like, your frontline, your heart and soul's in it. It's your baby. When you've got 30, 40 people and you're not doing that job as much, how do you ensure, what did you guys do to make sure you kept that at the forefront of what you guys did?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we talk about it a lot. You've probably got that impression. I'm a bit of a broken record about it. I think it's absolutely fundamental.
As a leader, though.
Yeah, we're obsessed with it. We give people a lot of credit and recognition for it. So because we get so much feedback, we get some negative stuff, of course, and then we deal with that around training and guidance and development. But we get a load of positive feedback, and we make a real fuss about that. So people get a lot of recognition through, what their customers sort of say about us. But I think the big thing is about the best practice. So without, this probably isn't very interesting for people, but I mean, we built playbooks, right? So we map the end-to-end customer experience for a candidate and for a client, and each stage of that process has documented best practice and videos, all of that. It's on a digital platform, and our people get to learn.
So this is exactly what we're doing right now, building playbook, and we're talking to clients about it, and load of them are like, "What?" And it's like, what platform did you use to do it?
So, funnily enough, are you familiar with the Recruitment Network?
Yes, of course.
Do you know Gordon Stoddard? James Gordon. Yeah, right, good guys. So Gordon had a tool a software tool that he uses with a range of different industries.
Yeah. Through the energy business.
Yes, that's right. And so we used that platform initially. Gordon was great, and we paid a software license and we used that, and we built all the material. And then last year we moved it into a different platform. It sort of evolved a little bit. But Gordon was great. He helped us out a lot. That was, because it meant we could just sort of drop the content and get going without having to develop anything. And now we've moved on to a sort of a bespoke thing. And we've got an intranet where we've got your competency framework, all different applications, single sign on, and you can go into that and see all your training, because we're just trying to make it really easy for people to learn. We've got brilliant L&D function. Caroline and Audrey are amazing, and they own that playbook, and they make sure that all our training is aligned to it. So, I don't know, Sean, a lot of people will probably look at our business and say, okay, you've got less than 100 people, yet you've got, that seems like a lot of support functions. And, I think compared to many organisations, I think probably we do. But what I think that enables us to do is have perhaps greater expectations of fee earning per head, and hopefully the right foundations to scale our business to a significant size. But it's back to what I was saying earlier. Are you going to invest in the foundations for future growth, or is it all about kind of squeezing what you can out of it now? Yeah. And that's not a black and white decision. Where are you on that scale?
Yeah, there's not a lot wrong with either decision, providing you commit to that decision. And what I get is a lot of people on the phone saying they want the big end value, but they also want the here and now. And they don't work together.
No, I agree with you.
I had a guy today, and I said to him, I said, it's like me saying I want to live in Chelsea with a 200 grand budget. It's not possible. You need to weigh up. So if you want to prepare, it's same with marketing for me. It's like if you spend £600 a month with a social media management company. No, I mean, you can message me if you want from these companies and pitch yourselves, but I think for that kind of value, you're basically paying what an intern would get, a 16-year-old. What do you expect? You want to grow your NFI by £1 million, and you're going to spend £600 a month on marketing. I mean, I'm just like, you wouldn't go into your business and drop your fees from 20% to 4%.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of investment in your brand in all areas, I think, is super important for those that want the long term. Otherwise, you can make a shed load and have a good living. The other way.
I mean, I completely agree, and I think it's the same when when people kind of work out what company is for them when they want to join. It's working out what it is you want out of your career, and whether you're going to so you're aligned with the values and the beliefs of the company, and then what is that business going to offer you as a platform for your career. And there's so many different choices, right? For some people, joining a really tiny entrepreneurial business where they can help build it is the right thing, and I'd always back people to do that. For others, they want something, you go to the big guys where you've got a kind of structured, formulaic way of working that you just kind of slot in. They've got all the clients already and all of that, and that's not a bad place to learn. Again, that's a choice for everyone. So and I think it's the same when you're building your business. There's so many different ways to cut it, but you just got to be really clear on your strategy and work out what's important to you, and then 100% commit to it.
And I'd put you guys now in that what I call challenger brand category, where you're bigger than the startup and the initial scale up brands, and you're not the the Adecco, but you're breaking the 100 barrier up to 200-300. So really, there's not that many companies in that. If you actually look at there's 81% of the industry in our country is sub 10 staff.
Yeah.
So there's
numbers
actually,
are mad,
you're probably
aren't they?
sat in about 5 to 10% of the industry is a similar size. So my question would be like, what is the future?
Well, I think the future, if you'd asked me this 2 years ago to where we are now, I think the future is a little bit different because, Brexit vote, but nothing much happened. Lots of wailing, and it wasn't the result that many people in my world wanted, right?
Exactly.
But and so you kind of think for a couple of years you might think, okay, well maybe it will go a different way. Maybe we'll kind of step back from the brink. But so if they think probably for a couple of years, not much happened in terms of the economy. But I think when you look now, if you do do your research and think about the UK economy, I think we realise that we definitely want to grow in the UK, but growing in the UK is going to be a bit harder today than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. So that doesn't mean to say we're not going to grow. But we'll grow 30% in the UK if we hit our numbers every year. So but in the US we expect to grow from 4 to 50 in the next 3 or 4 years, right? And in Singapore, Hong Kong, and wherever we are next, whether it's Tokyo or Seoul, we expect to go from sort of 15, to 50 in the next 2 or 3 years. So that our business will go from being kind of 12%, 10 or 12% headcount outside the UK to probably 35% headcount in the UK, outside the UK. So just the whole nature of the business changes. Now, okay, the way it might play out, maybe, these sort of crazy kids who run our country will absolutely nail it and the economy will go amazingly well. Maybe we'll have a free trade agreement with the US within 18 months and, kind of not look back. In which case, if we grow amazingly in the UK, that is, it'd be so exciting, But I think it's hard to, your crystal ball's a bit cloudy for the UK right now, isn't it? I mean, we don't know the nature of our exit from Europe. It's so difficult to predict how that's going to play out.
Yeah. But for your business in the strategy, have you got obviously internationalization and growth of that?
Yeah.
Have you got anything else that you can see in the future that you want to achieve?
Well, we've got a load of things going on at the moment that are nowhere near mature. So we've got a few different specialist areas. We're building up a cybersecurity practice, which is what we do in the US. As well, we've got a managed solutions business. We're not the only ones doing that, but statement of work delivery, which is really interesting, winning some nice work through that. We got a business where we hire developers and technical talent in Kiev. Wow. So UK businesses desperate to hire dev talent, usually around sort of maybe machine learning, AI, high end sort of data science type skills. And either can't afford them or can't attract them to their business because Google and Facebook are hiring them all. We hire them, permanently employ them in Kiev to extend their UK teams, and it's both sort of cost effective and gives them.
So you permanently employ them, or
we got a partner? Yeah, we got a partner business in Kiev.
Right.
So we've got an agreement with them. They employ them out there and give them this amazing experience in it's a place called Unit City in Kiev. It's a really cool tech center. We got Snapchat, a load of cool companies, and we've got a hub there, and we employ a bunch of developers, super smart people, and so we got a load of things going on that aren't that mature already. So we're not kind of thinking about too many things new beyond growing what we've got at the moment. And I think there's huge scope for growth for what we've got. And in fact, that business is interesting. We call it development dev hubs, but we build dev hubs. The reason that came about is because we kept meeting customers saying, desperately trying to hire data scientists, and they don't want to come work for me, right? I'm having to pay so much money for them. Then 6 weeks later, they get a cooler gig spoken to them about, and off they shoot. And I've got this big problem.
So you charging them out on a project basis, but permanently employing them?
So we permanently employ them, and the whole idea is that they will be there, they become kind of part of the company, although not employed. They charge monthly. The business out there and ourselves kind of split a margin on that, a monthly margin. But because they're a brilliant bunch of people, smart, super smart young lads, and their CEO's a guy who used to work for Apple. Really clever man, incredibly connected. So they what they want to focus on is building their proposition out there, not building a sales function in the UK. So it's just win-win. So
wow.
we promote it. It's an answer for our customers who don't have an answer right now and don't want to just kind of chuck projects over the fence to an outsourced software where they don't know what they're getting. So they get to build their teams, and the business out there get to focus on just doing that brilliantly. So yeah, it's worked out really well. Love that. So I get to go to Kiev every now and then as well. It's a very cool city.
Sounds it. And the IR35 contract issue, how are you solving that at the minute?
Well, God, okay, how long we got? I mean,
not too long.
I did I put a bit of commentary out actually a month or so ago that got quite a lot of engagement, because what my view on the change actually is that if everybody just takes a deep breath, takes the time to understand what the change is, just have a cup of tea, just settle down, and takes a pragmatic view to how to implement it, then I think everything's just going to be fine. There's a whole bunch of people, and I'm going to offend people by saying this, right? But there's a whole bunch of people who probably ought to be working inside IR35 and haven't been for a long time, might have to change now, right? And there's a whole other community who take a lot of risk in what they do, deliver services, and are entirely appropriately working outside IR35 and should still maintain that status if everyone is sensible and do proper determinations after April the 6th. As long as everybody takes a pragmatic view, everything's going to be okay. There'll be some people who are a bit pissed off. I understand that, but you know what? So be it. But what you want is fairness. Now, I think the thing that's got really tricky is that a lot of organisations, through fear of potential liabilities, have taken sort of blanket approaches, which is really disrupting the whole model. And of course, that's their prerogative, right? And we respect that, but. I think the businesses that are much more pragmatic, get really informed about it, that use a, IR35 status determination tool that offers indemnities, that, if you can have a real smart approach to it, actually it's going to be okay. But we're in a period of flux and fear, so it will disrupt the contracting market for certainly for 6 months after implementation, and clearly it is disrupting it a little bit at the moment. So what we're doing about it, I don't know about solving it, Sean, but what we're definitely doing is spending a load of time educating our clients, helping them out, giving them advice. We're giving a lot of love to our kind of candidate base, our contractors, trying to sort of hold their hand through it, and hopefully we'll come through without too much disruption. But yeah, it's. And you've even got, you'll have seen perhaps that the issue was raised in the House of Lords last week. There's sort of talk of some form of review of its implementation. It feels a bit late to be making any kind of major changes, but who knows? There's so much uncertainty. But what I will say is this: is that on April the 7th, the demand for flexible labour in the UK will not have changed from 2 days before, right? So. Okay, might have to be a bit creative in terms of maybe more fixed-term contracts and so on, but actually the flexibility of our labour market has been a huge contributor to our economy getting through the last 10 years in good shape.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's forgotten.
No, I agree. I completely agree. Nick, time's nearly up, but I want to, your business has gone from, it's an interesting story because you had a lot of experience before. You took your time, you planned it, you then got more into the recruitment space than you were for 10 years before, and you found out you loved it, and you're almost still in there now. And then you've grown a great business. Brilliant. Not many businesses have reached what you've done in 10 years. Obviously, there's some bigger and different, but looking back, if you were to sit in front of someone today who's about to start their agency, what would you say to them is the biggest learning? What would be the number one thing you would give them as you, from your wisdom? There's a couple of things, if I can. We've touched on both of them probably. I think one of them is work out what you believe in, right? What are your values as a person, and how do you want those to be represented in the organisation you build? Because you have to love it, because it is going to take your life over. I've got an amazing wife and family and all of that, and trying to get balance in life is really difficult. But in my work life, it's absolutely taken my life over, and I absolutely love it. And it's the proudest
thing in my professional life by a mile. So make sure it represents and reflects your own values and beliefs, because you don't want to build something you're not proud of. But then the bit that we touched on earlier, Sean, about strategy, be really clear about where the opportunity is. Make sure you're going to be narrow and deep in that market, and then stick to that. However hard it is, however tempting, yeah, good word. However tempting it is to deviate, you've just got to stick to that, And of course, if you work your socks off and stick to a really clear, narrow and deep strategy, you will be successful. What I found along the way is that so many people want to help you out. I mean, that's what, in fact, I've forgotten about that. When we started out, so many people want to help us, former colleagues and, mates and suppliers. There's a lot of love for a new business. People want to help you, nurture you, help you along the way. So much goodwill for us. So I suppose my advice would be, if you really have a burning desire to do it, you've worked out what your kind of narrow niche is, what it's going to stand for in terms of your values, go for it. I mean, I was 40 years old when that's literally, I'm going to stop you, because that's the next thing I was going to ask.
Now let's talk to the 40-year-old.
Well,
let's talk to that guy who's in corporate recruitment, who's in, maybe not even corporate, just has been in the industry for, say, 10, 15 years, probably thinks they've missed the fucking boat when it comes to being a recruitment owner.
Yeah.
I imagine at that point in your life, on average, you've got more commitments.
Yeah,
you might have young
children.
children, you're married, you've got mortgages. Like, I started the business at 30, having a house, but that was it, and a girlfriend and soon to be wife. But I knew at that point there was nothing holding me back. But at 41, you're talking to that. What would you say to that person who's listening? Because I guarantee there's people listening, and there will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think energy and a passion for what you're doing is more important than age. For me, it was for Neil and I, it was a point in time where we knew we could probably go and get a job somewhere else, another big corporate, but we knew it was now or never. And okay, starting at 40, you might wonder about that, but actually it's all about when it's the right time for you. And when I talked earlier about the experience I had at Badenoch Clark around developing managers, around putting sort of structure in, around scaling, that stuff, if I'd done it at 30, I wouldn't have learned any of that. No. I wouldn't have known that. I enjoyed every minute of my time at Badenoch Clark. I met some my best mates in the world. A load of them are from that environment, that time. I met my wife there.
Really?
It was a great time.
So
I don't regret any of it. Yeah.
She's
much better than me.
Really?
Yeah.
Does she still help out with strategy and ideas?
Yeah, she did for a long time in the business. So relatively recently, she's not involved now, but she helped out. And it's lovely when you can speak to someone who kind of understands what you're going through with the ups and downs and so on. But I think, I don't know, it depends a bit on when you want to, what your energy levels are like, and when you want to kind of not do it anymore. I mean, I'm 50 now, and I love what I do every day. I don't see myself not doing this in the foreseeable, because I enjoy it, and I think that's the key thing, is you've got to enjoy it. You probably get people at 30 who don't enjoy it very much, and people at 55 who love it. So I think that's more important.
There's a lot of people, there's a lot of that. What's your life like outside of work now?
Well, my kids are 3 boys, 16, 15 and 11. So, they're massive into their sport. So basically weekends are driving them to football, stood by a wet muddy pitch, trying to remain polite, and and occasionally running the line.
I was one of 3 boys growing up, so
right.
I was the middle, but I can imagine what your life's like.
Mayhem. We got a male dog as well.
When you got 3 lads, it can change so fast. Like, I remember we'd be like the best mates, and then something would change, and literally it'd be like the loudest arguments. Mayhem. But now we're all, like, obviously my older brother's 35, I'm 33. I forgot my age. My little brother's 30, and we're really close now. Like, it's great. Like, it all balances out, and you can laugh about it. If we have a few beers and at the wrong time, it can go back to the old days quite quick. You fall back into your old role. But so you're running around, and being a recruitment owner, like, what has it meant you can do in your personal life? How has it impacted the way you can be a father and a husband?
Look, I think whether it's to do with me being a recruitment owner or not, I don't know. What I will say is I love what I do every day. I feel incredibly proud about it. I love the people I work with. You know, Neil's a great guy to work with. You know, we respect each other and work together. You know, that probably gives me that content to enjoy my life outside work. You know, this whole work-life balance, I mean, I probably work too hard, you know, hours-wise. I probably do. But this whole concept of work-life balance, for me, it's not quite like that. It's they're all part of the same kind of thing. If I'm happy at work, I'm happier at home. You know, clearly if I was unhappy at home, that probably would impact work too. But I feel content professionally, and I'm sure that makes me a better guy around the house at home. Mm-hmm. You know, the middle lad fancies doing recruitment. So, you know, he's only 15, but he's got a gift of the gab. Yeah, I will do. I'll get him on the podcast. So yeah, we'll get him into the business soon enough. I'm not sure we can legally employ him just yet, but his mum may not be too happy if he cuts school. But I think, you know, I think it's just a contentment thing. You know, it's not like, it's not like I take, 4 months out and take the family to, around the world. It's not like that. No. You know, we run a pretty disciplined kind of operation. We have nice holidays and all of that, but it's not as if it's given me freedom in a way that perhaps a kind of more of a like lifestyle business might do. But then that wasn't my choice. No. That's not what I wanted.
Are you a 9 every day in the office guy, or do you work?
Yeah,
from home?
pretty much. I travel a lot with work. A little occasional work from home, but and we have a lot of flexibility to our staff. Our people, we give a lot of flexibility around, dynamic working, work from home and all of that. But for me, I like to be in an office, maybe a bit old school, but I travel a lot as well. So I'm out in,
Do you know what I was reading? I don't know who wrote it. I can't remember. I was trying to find it today, actually. There's a guy on LinkedIn yesterday who wrote about the HS2. I don't know if you saw it. It got quite a lot of engagement. It was a wicked post, and he was like, the HS2, high-speed rail, and all this stuff. He's like an answer to tomorrow's answer to yesterday's problem. What he was saying was the changes in the way people want to work in 5 years, 10 years. People won't work in offices. They'll work in co-working, shared spaces in villages they want to live. Yeah. And you've built this fucking multi-billion-pound high-speed rail network to get people to London faster, but people won't want to do it by the time it's ready. Well, and it's crazy.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's talk of 100 billion. I mean, that's just a crazy number, isn't it? But look, I don't know. I think face to face is really important. I really do, and I also think that connecting, the north with the south and not having too much of the kind of economic kind of hub in the southeast is a good thing. But yeah, I think once we get 5G rolled out in the UK, it'll be a few years yet. I mean, there's better places to work, isn't there? And people are going to do that. So yeah, I think that's right. But
with the incredible house prices in London, the office price, everything here, it's going to implode in that way. And if you can have more people distributed, like even our business upstairs is like 50% upstairs, and 50% work wherever they are. Yeah, and it allows me to keep costs down. And we still have a really good central location, but. I personally am a total believer that as the economy, as the generations come through, they're going to care so much about their business but they're going to blend work and life so much as well. Like last night, this guy, 11:45, he's picking up errors. The guy behind, JJ who films and records everything for me. He sat 11:45 last night. He's picking up spelling mistakes in my content, going, "Boss, you've made post this one tomorrow." And I'm like, but on a Monday, if he wants to work from Leeds to see his sister, I don't give a shit, because he's sowing, it's part of his life. And it's what you just said.
But I think so I agree, that level of engagement, loving what you do is so important. But I think wanting to work in a flexible way and being able to really quickly travel around the UK to see people, those things aren't mutually exclusive. I think
no, they're not.
I'd like both. I don't want to pay 100 billion for it, and it's disrupting woodland and homes, and I don't know what the answer is in our crazy country, but I'd love to be able to get to Birmingham and Manchester and Liverpool in those times. I'd love to, and I also think people should have the flexibility and the kind of networks to be able to work flexibly. I think I'd like both. Well, but it's tough, isn't it? These choices.
You want your cake and you want to eat it.
I do, yeah. I do.
Well, Nick, look, we're out of time, but I really enjoyed this episode, mate.
It's been great.
I think for me, the lasting thing I'm going to leave this episode with is that it's not too late to start a business. If you've been in recruitment or any industry, but recruitment is what we care about. If you've been in for 10, 15 years and you sat there thinking you missed a boat, you're a shining light that there's a possibility anyone can go out and build a business as long as they care and they're passionate and they've got a vision for it. So I hope that so many people get value from this. Always ask that you're open for anyone to reach out to you directly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
You're tagged in this post. LinkedIn be the good place to get you.
Yeah.
Active on there every day.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So guys, that's another episode from me. Reach out to Nick, ask him any questions. Maybe wait for the IR35 piece to blow over and he'll give you a bit more info on that.
Got some time on our hands.
Yeah, exactly. But look, thanks so much for listening. What I'm going to be announcing in the next couple of weeks is an extra episode a week coming out of the RAG podcast. So I've been listening to your questions online. I'm getting messages every single day on LinkedIn now. So we're going to be addressing it with an extra episode every single week, which is going to add additional value. I'm not going to tell you exactly what's going to happen yet. It's a bit different, but that'll be coming out. JJ's coming out in the next month or so. Yep. So stay tuned for that. As always, please do share your comments on LinkedIn. I just want more people to listen. I just want more people to get value from this. And so the more you share with your friends and your colleagues and your bosses and put comments on it, the more people will listen. And as well on the Apple Store, give us your 5-star ratings. Get on there, give us your comments, because again, the big boys at Apple will promote it further. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again next Wednesday with another unique story of growth. See you then.